What is up, y'all? My name is Brandon. I've got some books to talk about and a book haul for you. So I think the reading that I've been doing recently has been pretty good. I've enjoyed most things that I've been reading, and I feel like I've been reading a good amount. I know that we have our ups and downs, and but knowing that Schadenfreude is coming out this month, I was super excited for that. So I kind of put things on hold, and then it didn't show up as early as I wanted. So then I was able to fit in a couple other books in between. So I think overall I've been doing pretty good with my goals for the year. Although I do try to stay away from setting number goals and all that. I think it's just kind of pointless. I just read what I want when I want, and whatever I get to is what I'll get to. So what have I finished in the past couple of weeks? Well, in anticipation for Schadenfreude, I was reading The Recognitions by William Gaddis. I did finish that. This was the most difficult book that I've probably ever read, to be honest with you. I think it was more difficult than Gravity's Rainbow. I think it was more difficult than The Tunnel. Elemensetter's Log for sure. I'm trying to think of anything else difficult that I've read. Difficult in quotations. This one was just, the lack of names, I think, is really what did it for me. How the narrator shifts in and out and perspective changes, and it's not really clear who's talking when. And that just threw me off. I do think it's worth it, and I think it is a masterpiece if we want to break it down into categories of books based on how good they are. I think this is definitely a masterpiece. Will I ever reread it? I don't know. You can see how many tabs I've got. I tried. I ended up using a guide for most of the sections. After the section, I would go back and I would read kind of some synopsis just to make sure that I was clear with what was happening. But I don't know if I'm gonna do a review on it, a full review. I might. We'll see. If you want to see that, please let me know. Because I'm definitely open to doing that. I just don't know. It is a lot in here on any big topic you can think of about humanity. I think that this book touches on it in some way, and in that regard, I think it's worth it. For everybody, though, I know it's not going to be a book that you finish. So I would say that just know that going in, that it's not a breeze, and it is going to take some work from the reader. But I think Gaddis knew that, and I do like that about it. But I'm glad I read it. But again, I don't know if I'll go back to it. We'll see, though, because I do think going into it again, I would definitely feel more comfortable. But that's a conversation for another day. I also finished another book by an author that is a difficult author. I finished Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. This was an amazing book. Probably my second favorite of what I've read from him. I've read his first 4 books. I've read V, The Crying of Lot 49, Gravity's Rainbow, and then this. And I think this is probably my second favorite behind Gravity's Rainbow. This is in Pynchon fashion, a paranoid look at society. I think there's a character named Zoid Wheeler who ends up going on a search for his wife, who has run off with this guy who is the worst guy around, and his daughter is a teenager, and she's kind of going back and finding information about her mother throughout the story, and really flips back and forth from the present to the past and learning about the people throughout. That's off the top of my head. I think overall, this is not a difficult book per se. I do think it definitely has its challenges, but the language and the narrative are fairly clear for Pynchon, at least. So this one I would definitely say, if you want to read something by Pynchon, this is a good place to kind of get into what his style is like. Obviously, The Crying of Lot 49, I think, is the place to start, just because of how compact and overarching it is for Pynchon's style. And like I said, it's much shorter. This is almost 400 pages. It's about 385 pages. And that one's like 150 maybe. But this one for sure, I would recommend this to anybody who's into anything that is in that kind of postmodern style where things are kind of conspiratorial, but also not really clear of what's happening all the time. And I did like the ending a lot as well. So definitely recommend that one. Most recently, I finished Bedbugs by Martina Vidaic, translated by Ellen Elias Bursach. This was sent to me by Sandorf Passage. It is out now. Came out last Tuesday, I believe it was September 2nd. This book was difficult to put down, and I know people say that all the time, but I do think it was. This was one of the ones that I know I mentioned when I flipped it open. It was one of those where there's no page breaks, and that really helped me to get through some parts of it, because it's kind of like you don't really know when the scene's going to shift or when something is going to change or when the characters are going to go somewhere. But this is written as a letter to this woman's friend, and she's really telling the story of her life after she ends up finding bed bugs in her apartment. And I don't really want to give anything away because it does require you to kind of go into it not really knowing what she's going to talk about. I will say the ending was more ambiguous than I wanted it to be. I thought I was going to get a little bit more closure to some of it, but I think it makes sense for what the goal of this was, which is to kind of not necessarily go into the plot, more so the human condition and the being inside of this woman's head as she's writing this letter. I think that's really the point, and how the trauma that we have, going into something, even if it's something as simple as bed bugs, are that has a trickle down effect throughout our entire life. I would say I would recommend this for sure, but I think it reminded me of, honestly, it reminded me of Shutter Island. I have not read the book, but it reminded me a lot of Shutter Island up until the end, and I love Shutter Island. So yeah, if that vibe kind of appeals to you, then I definitely would say to go for this. Although just be aware the ending is ambiguous, so you might not get all the answers that you want. But of course, that's okay. That's something that I appreciate. That endings are messy. They are not clear cut. Even if they are not happy or sad or anything like that, it just, having something ambiguous is both a positive and a negative in a lot of ways. All right, currently reading. I have only two things that I'm currently reading. The first one I am almost done with. I have like 10 pages left. Story of a Lost Child by Elena Ferrante, translated by Anne Goldstein, I believe it is. And this is the conclusion of the Neapolitan Quartet that I've been reading since March, I think. Maybe it was even before that. I read My Brilliant Friend with a book club, and then I just kept going. I read Story of a New Name pretty soon after that. Then I took a little break. I read Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay, and then I took an even longer break after that, and then picked up this one. So this one was for Women in Translation Month. Like I said in the last video about Women in Translation Month, this bled into September a little bit, but it is what it is. I love this story that she's telling. I think that the female psyche is captured, although how would I know, right? The female psyche, at least an authentic sounding version of the female psyche, is very well captured in this book. This entire series, really. She really makes you hate a lot of the characters and makes you care for others and makes you feel like you are in her head, the main character in the story. And the friendships that she has with her friend Lila, or she goes by Lena sometimes in the story. I mean, I don't really even know where to start about this. I will definitely do a video on the entire quartet after I finish and kind of get my thoughts together. So, yeah, this story really centers on when they're older, they have kids, they are kind of, you know, going back to where they came from and seeing how things have changed and, you know, where their kids are going and all that stuff. 10 pages left. I don't know how the ending is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be anything more than what I've gotten so far, or if it's going to be anything surprising right up at the last few pages. So I'm definitely excited to finish this. I will finish it tonight, and then I'll be posting on Instagram for sure, just about my general thoughts right after I finish. So looking forward to that. All right, then. Also reading The Absolute Behemoth of Schadenfreude by Michael Lenz, translated by Max Lawton. I'm about 254 pages in, and it looks like nothing. I mean, I don't really know what I can say about it just yet. It is esoteric, it is engaging, it is referential, but at the core of it, I think, you know, it's not called a novel, it's called a requiem, and I think that a lot of people are not focusing on that. When I've heard some people talk about it, I think that we really need to focus on the fact that this is not an ode to Lenz's father, but a way of him dealing with the things that he went through from his childhood, and on however far his trauma went with his father. I mean, I know a couple people so far have given up this book. They have said that they just don't care enough about it, and I've talked to a couple other people who are super into it, and they are kind of on the same page with me. They want to keep going and see where it goes, and you know, I'm definitely going to keep going. I want to get to at least half, and then, you know, I can make an accurate assumption of whether or not I think it's worth it to keep going. So far, I think it's for sure enough to keep going. I am taking some pretty decent notes in a little notebook I've got. So far, I've gotten 1, and then I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 pages so far of notes, with just like quotes and ideas that pop out to me, and events that happen, and even questions, because there are some times where, you know, there's no clear breaks. There are paragraphs, but there's no clear separations between the paragraphs, at least so far. So, you know, the narrative is switching up and changing in the middle of one page. So sometimes it'll happen where I'll kind of be a little confused, but you know, I make sure to note where I'm at in the book. So I'm tabbing some things that I think are important, as far as what I think important themes are, but I don't want to write in it just yet. I don't want to tab everything because I think that it's going to be way too full. But I like the writing. I like Lawton's translation is good so far. I mean, I have not noticed anything that doesn't read smoothly. And was the hype worth it? Maybe not. You know, remains to be seen, but I'm enjoying it so far. So if you have it, let me know what you think. If you've read it, if you want to read it, let me know. Because I do want to make sure that people know what they're getting into when they pick this up. So, but overall, enjoying it. All right, what are my immediate reads to happen after I finish Story of Lost Child? In addition to Schadenfreude, I need some easier reads, some shorter reads for sure. I've got some picks that I do want to talk about. First one was actually sent to me from a person on Instagram, Sebastian JC, called Solitude. This is a story of a young girl who is living in a post-apocalyptic world, and she is the only child with this group of people, and kind of goes off and she's watching what's happening around her, and you're seeing the story happen through her eyes, and what it's like in that situation as the only child. And I'm assuming the horrors and catastrophes that are going to be a part of that, but it seems straightforward, and I appreciate him sending this to me. I'll definitely post some thoughts about it after I finish it. All right, next up is my third John Williams book, Augustus. This is a little bit longer. This was on my NYRB summer list. It's still technically summer, so I guess it still works, but just a historical, a Roman historical fiction narrative that kind of vastly different than Stoner and Butcher's Crossing, but I enjoy both of those in different ways. I do like his writing style. I think it's simple, it's to the point, and it's very clear. If you've read this, please let me know what you think. But I've really not heard anything bad about it. I've heard it's really good. The cover is fantastic, although I wish this wasn't on there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I've again not heard much bad about it. So right at 300 pages too. So yeah, a little bit longer, but I think it's gonna be an easier read to read alongside Schadenfreude, so it's not gonna be too difficult to throw in. But excited for that. So this next one is a much shorter book by Chris Erikson. This is Henrytown. This was sent to me by D. Zank Books. They offered to send me a bunch of books, and so this will be the first one that I read from them. I believe they sent me like 5 or 6 maybe, and so this is not. There was no dust jacket with this either, which I thought was interesting. It's just this. It's got just a little like quote on the back, and then just that little logo on the bottom, and then just the title. So I think it's interesting how there's no dust jacket, and it's the only hardcover book that I have that they sent me, but it's very short. I mean, it's small. I mean, it fits. You can hold it like this. Like, it's not a big book at all. It's my bookmark that just fell out. But it just, the back says, "Excuse me," she said at one point, "what do you think of coming to Henrytown?" She didn't ask about the site itself. To ask about the site was to ask how you did on the tour part. To ask about Henrytown was to leave yourself out of it. So literally have no idea what this is about, but it says non-linear narrative, and it says humor, it says it's bizarre, and it says it's experimental. So I appreciate them for sending this, and I'll definitely be sharing what I think about it once I finish. And finally, I have a book of poetry that I am planning on getting to, that I've had for a while, from Milkweed Editions, which is a very common poetry publisher. This is called Philomath by Devin Walker Figueroa. A beautiful cover. I've had this again for, probably like 6 months or so, maybe more. And on a lot of these pages, the breaks, so like the chapters, I guess, have that same kind of design. But I think it's a beautiful book with the kind of like the paperback flaps like they have. Always love when paperbacks have that. And really just, I need to read some more poetry. The last poetry collection I read was Langston Hughes, which I enjoyed, but I know this is going to be a little bit different. But just one that I picked up that was on my shelf for a while. I figured I should get to it, so we're going to throw that in at some point soon. One national poetry series, it says, so at least it is well regarded. All right, so I've got a little book haul. I do want to share just kind of like what I've been buying recently. I did buy, there's a couple books on the shelf that I've bought recently. I've got A Time for Everything right here by Karl Ove Knausgaard. I've heard nothing but good things about this. It's just some retellings of stories from the Bible in Knausgaard's way. I haven't read anything by him, but I think this is going to be the first thing that I read by him. Just because I don't want to jump into my struggle just yet. I want to kind of get something else standalone in before I start that really long series. And then I also bought a copy of The Birds by Tarjei Versas, which is, I had a copy of it. It was actually sitting right there. It had a massive tear on this brown cover from a library sticker that was on it, and I just could not deal with it. It's still sitting there. Whether that's shallow of me or not, I don't know, but I just had to get a new one, so I dropped $30 on a new one. It was like the only one that was on eBay, so but I got that. It's perfect now. Nothing's wrong with it at all, so I don't know why I feel better about it, but I do. So if you're like that, just know you're not alone, because my wife told me I was kind of crazy for that, but I know that's true, but I just couldn't help it. So, all right, what else did I buy? Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. I know of 2 Truman Capote books. This one and In Cold Blood. All I know is that In Cold Blood is nonfiction. It kind of inspired a lot of true crime, the style that's popularized now. I know Nick at Books Are Sick read this, and he liked it a lot, but I don't really know anything else about it. It was $2. I thought the cover was cool. This one's like pretty small too. So yeah, don't know if it's good or not. We'll see. I got 2 NYRBs at a newer bookstore near me, Brian's Books in Churchill in Richmond. So if you are in the area, highly recommend you check them out. It's small inside, but he has a fantastic selection of books. I got Shepard Lee, written by himself, is that cursive writing, and then I got The Radiance of the King by Camara Lay. This one says a masterpiece of African literature, and it says a white man has been shipwrecked on the coast of Africa. Flushed with self-importance, he demands to see the king, but the king has just left for the south of his realm, traveling through an increasingly phantasmagoric landscape in the company of a beggar and 2 roguish boys. Clarence is gradually stripped of his pretensions until he is sold to the royal harem as a slave. But in the end, Clarence's bewildering journey is the occasion of a revelation as he discovers the image, both shameful and beautiful, of his own humanity in the alien splendor of the king. So it sounds really, phantasmagoric is a word that I like to see. I think that surrealist style appeals to me. Also, Solenoid is described as phantasmagoric. And then this one, Shepard Lee, is really supposed to be a funny story. It's very old. It was published in 1836 about a man who can project his soul into people who are dying. And I think that alone sounds great. It's an NYRB, so I know it's generally they usually are pretty good. It does have a lot of references in at least the reviews to Edgar Allan Poe, and he has he's got a little blurb on the back. So that kind of pushed me a little bit to read it. It was also only $6, so I figured I would give it a shot. The cover's cool, so it caught my eye, and so I figured I'd give it a shot. Still at Brian's Books, I got actually the rest of these. This one, Sylvia Plath, Johnny Panic and the Bible of Dreams. I honestly picked it up because of the fact that it was Sylvia Plath. I've read her journals, and I've read her The Bell Jar, her novel. And this has a lot of stories that she mentions in her journals, which was interesting to me and made me really want to pick it up. So yeah, she talks a lot about Spain. She lived in Spain, and they met this widow who lived there, and there's a story literally called Widow Mangada, which is based on that experience that she wrote about in her journal. So I think seeing that nonfiction matched to her fiction, to her short story, seeing that connection will be really cool. And I might actually go with this pretty soon, just because it's shorter stories and I can kind of piece them out and not have to read straight through. But not poetry, prose from her, which is beautiful, at least in the bell jar and her journals. So if you have not read either one of those, I definitely recommend reading. Start with the bell jar because her journals are a lot and very dense. So I would say definitely start with the bell jar because it's fantastic. I got I Served the King of England by Bohumil Hrabal. I don't know if I said that right. Translated from Czech by Paul Wilson. I've heard a lot about this, don't really know much about it. I think it's it says it's kind of funny, hilarious and poignant, lushly erotic and deeply profound. A man working at a hotel in just before World War II, assuming that I Serve the King of England is this guy who is working at this hotel, but I think the cover is great. It was $4, so I really could not get it. I've heard about it, and this was one that was on my list to get. Some of these others were not, but I'm looking forward to this as well. Although I've heard that one is kind of difficult, but we all know that I enjoy that kind of thing. I got Nightwood by Juna Barnes. I love this cover. I have seen it out, and it's a very short book. These margins are massive, and New Directions, this is like the original cover, I guess, from when it was published. This was $7, and it's got an introduction by T.S. Eliot, so I think that's interesting. Also got Flowers of Grass by Takehiko Fukunaga. Obviously, this is Dalkey Archive. That's really the only reason I picked it up, to be honest with you. Like, they're the publisher. Like, if I see something by them and it's in a reasonable price range, like, I'm going to get it. But this was published a while ago. It's not a new book at all. Published in 1954 originally, Japanese, and the translation was published in 2012. But the narrator is an aspiring poet, and they kind of he shares a room with somebody who decides to undergo a procedure, and he finds 2 notebooks under his bed sheets, which are called Flowers of Grass, and the notebooks are reading them. The narrator is reading the notebooks and is starting to wonder if his death was like a suicide. So if he went under this procedure in order to die, or if it was something that was meant to actually help him. So, I mean, this is not that long. It's pretty short. Obviously, seen Dalkey Archive all over the place, and I know they're reputable, and looking forward to reading something else by them. I think the last thing I read was The Tunnel. Yeah, that was the last thing. So we'll see what the next thing I pick up is by them. All right, I got Big Shadow by Marta Balchowitz by Book Hug Press. I've seen this publisher on social media. I've not gotten anything by them, and I think, I mean, I don't know anything about this book, really. I don't really care, honestly. This was like one of the only times I've ever even seen this publisher out, so I just picked it up. It was $10, so worst case, I can kind of, sell it back at a little bit of a loss, but it does say fiction and coming of age on the back. And darkly humorous. So we'll see. I do think the cover is also pretty sick. So, but yeah. All right, I got 8 more. I'll hurry up though. Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I think this is one that most people have heard of. Most people honestly probably have read it. I have not read anything by him, unfortunately. I do definitely need to. I do have If Beale Street Could Talk, as well as this one, but I've heard too much about this to not at least grab it and keep it on my shelf. Also got Prater Violet by Christopher Isherwood. I know he was a very influential gay author around the 1940s, and have something else by him. I can't recall what I have by him already. I believe it's New Directions. Berlin Stories. So, I saw this. It was less than $5, so I decided to just go ahead and grab it because I know that he is a name that is worthwhile. The margins are also pretty big in this one, so it seems like a quick read. All right, I've got The Assault by Harry Mulisch, translated from, doesn't say it on the front, which it should, Dutch, translated from Dutch by Claire Nicholas White, published by Pantheon. Don't really know anything about this either. I know this is also set around World War II, which I'm just realizing that a lot of the books that I got are actually set around that same time. It says, in the winter of 1945, the last dark days of World War II in occupied Holland, Nazi collaborator infamous for his cruelty is assassinated as he rides home on his bicycle. The Germans retaliate by burning down the home of an innocent family. Only 12-year-old Anton survives, and it says it's based on actual events, which is interesting. And then the end says, the end of the blurb says that he he watches or listens to a lot of encounters and sees what actually happened on that night in 1945. So it seems like it's kind of a mystery style of book, but yeah, we'll see. It's translated. That's a green flag for me, so I decided to grab it. Again, it was still like $6, so. Because of Tony at Life on Books, I grabbed Nella Larson, Passing. He read this and highly recommended it, and it's written by a woman of color, so I think it's a very authentic look at that instead of being written by somebody. We don't want to read a story about a black woman growing up by a white woman or white man. We want authenticity when we're reading, and he recommended this very highly, and so this was $4, so I grabbed it. It says it's a remarkably candid exploration of shifting racial and sexual boundaries, where Claire Kendry is the main character. She is married to a white man, unaware of her African-American heritage, and she severed all ties to her past. So I think that's interesting to kind of look at where we come from and how sometimes we do try to hide where we're from because we might be ashamed of it. And I think that's a very real thing that I'm sure people experience still today. Next one, I've got Seven Empty Houses by Samantha Schweblin. This is translated by Megan McDowell. I read Fever Dream actually recently too. I did not talk about that at the beginning, but that was very good. Very short, but it was very good. So I knew that I just had to grab this. There are 7 stories in this, so it's a book of short stories. I do have something else by her, but this was also pretty cheap. It was like $7.50, so I figured I'd grab it because I know that she was, Fever Dream was like a fever dream. It was so strange, but unsettling and just really good. Like a quick read, but a very engaging, and makes you want to keep going to see where she's going with it. But short stories again are always kind of like something you can grab and just pick up, put down without much commitment. 3 more. So I picked up Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I've read this, just don't own it, so I just had to grab it. That's a classic that everybody knows, everybody loves. I picked up Mumbo Jumbo by Ishmael Reed. I actually heard, I think they were talking about this on the Life on Books podcast. They mentioned that they had at least read some of it. But it says a brilliantly satiric deconstruction of Western civilization, a racy and uproarious commentary on our society. That sounds brilliant, and I think we can't really read enough of these kind of critiques of society, especially based on where we're at today. So despite the fact that it was published in 1972, I think that, it's still super prescient and an accurate depiction of where we're at today. So finally, When I Sing, Mountains Dance by Irene Solá. This is translated from the Catalan by Mara Fay Lethem. This is the same author as I Gave You Eyes and You Looked Toward Darkness. Same author, same translator. This sounds not quite as interesting to me as the other novel that she's written, but this came out before that. So honestly, I'll probably give this a shot before. I also think it's interesting that Halldór Laxness has a blurb in here that's completely in whatever that language, Norwegian maybe. Yeah, so this one, Grey Wolf Press is always one that I look for. The blurb of this says that a farmer gets struck by lightning, and it says he dies with poems on his lips and black chanterelles gathered in his shirt. I believe those are mushrooms. The ghosts of 17th century witches come across his body and claim his chanterelles before going on their merry way. I could be totally wrong about what chanterelles are. Let me actually look it up because it's going to bother me if I don't know what chanterelles are. A widely distributed edible mushroom, being yellow and trumpet-shaped or any similar mushroom of the genera Cantharellus, Polyozelus, or Gomphus, not all of which are edible. It's also the high string of the violin. So, yeah, those are what I got recently, last weekend. I'm going up to Northern Virginia this weekend, Saturday, so if you know of any bookstores in around Fairfax, please don't hesitate to let me know. If you watched all the way through this, I appreciate you. I'm going to try to do some more of these kind of just laid back videos and nothing too crazy about what I'm reading, what I finished recently, and just an update type of video. But otherwise, let me know what you're interested in seeing, if there's anything else helpful to see or anything that you want me to talk about, any books you recommend. Leave a comment about what you are currently reading, what you finished, and what you're about to read. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content from me, and I will see you all in the next one.